what is the difference between an SLR and a rangefinder? That's what I'm here to talk about today, and so that you can make a well-informed choice of whether you're buying either of them. So let's get straight into it. So we'll start off with an SLR, as SLRs are a lot more popular than rangefinders nowadays. And that's mainly because of their simplicity and more modern technology than rangefinders. This is a Canon AE1, which is actually my first film camera that I got, and it's handled pretty well, I have to say. So one of the main differences between an SLR and a rangefinder is how they work and how they function. With an SLR, you have a window on the back which looks directly through the lens and comes out through the viewfinder here. So you're seeing exactly what the film is going to be shot at, which makes focusing a lot easier and making your composition a lot easier as well. One of the caveats to that is it has this massive prism on the front, which it does make quite the bulk of the camera, and that is one of the downsides of having an SLR, is that it's quite bulky and it's a lot more heavier than a rangefinder style camera, or a rangefinder for that fact. How a SLR works is they have a massive mirror on the inside, and as you can see that the light reflecting coming in through the lens goes up into the mirror, goes up into the prism and through the viewfinder, which allows for you to see through the lens. However, one of the caveats to that again is that they are very, very loud compared to rangefinders. That's because of how SLRs function. They have a mirror, so every time you take a shot, it flips up like this, exposing the light to the film, and flips back down like that, which actually makes a lot of noise and causes a lot of movement, especially if you're shooting at lower shutter speeds. And I'll do a sound test for you right now, and you'll see how much louder it is compared to a rangefinder. You hear that clack, that's the mirror slapping the top of the SLR and hitting it back down. Another thing about size as well is that most SLR lenses are a lot bigger than rangefinder lenses, but that's mainly because of the more modern technology that SLRs have inside them compared to rangefinder cameras. As you can see on this Canon FD lens, it has a lot more connections, a lot more things to communicate with the camera. These aren't electrical, but for my Canon AE1 and the Canon FD system, it does have an auto exposure function, so it allows you to change. So it allows the camera to communicate with the lens to accurately expose using the aperture. And on top of that as well, SLRs are a lot more modern, a lot more recently made than rangefinder cameras, and it also allows full manual control as well. But it just controls the aperture so that you can get your composition first before knowing what aperture to use, which is great for me because I don't know how to do film photography when I started, and so having this auto exposure function is great. And that's why SLRs are a lot more popular, as they're more preferred with beginners, as they have a lot more modern technology inside them compared to rangefinder cameras. So now moving on to rangefinder cameras. This is my Canon 7. This is much older than my Canon AE1 that I have. This was actually Canon's last rangefinder camera that they made, the Canon Model 7, before they went all in on SLR technology, which is why you don't see many modern rangefinder style cameras about anymore, other than the likes of Leica or other small brands as well. However, the technology is very different and the way they work is also very different compared to an SLR. So as you can see, probably off the bat, there's no prism at the top, and that's because you're not actually seeing what's in the lens. You're seeing through this at the front. You're seeing through this little window at the front, which also has a little window on the back at the same time. So you're not seeing what's through the lens, which makes it a lot harder to compose your shots. However, rangefinders are used by more enthusiasts rather than casual shooters. Street photographers absolutely love rangefinders. They love the fact that you are able to look through the side like this and look at whatever is going on the outside, which is a lot more useful than an SLR, and it's a lot more harder to do on an SLR, as you're only seeing what's going on through the lens. So if you have a really long focal length lens, you can't see what's going or walking in or passing through that shot. You just kind of have to wait until you see the right moment. The ways that rangefinders and SLRs focus are slightly similar. They both have a holographic sight sort of in the middle. So SLRs have a circle in the middle, which lines up which sort of has like a parallax system to it. So once the images are lined up within that circle, that means your shot is in focus. And the same thing works with a rangefinder style camera as well, and with a rangefinder camera as well, is you're able to match up that holographic sight with the real life image, and that's how you know when your shot is in focus. And that's because the technology in a rangefinder is so different. You see this little window right here, and this window here acts like a pair of eyes, which allows for shots to be framed up nicely. As you can see within the rangefinder, there's no mirror. There is just the film plane, and that's it. Which is why street photographers and enthusiasts like having rangefinders, because they're a lot smaller and a lot lighter, because there's no need for that mirror or that prism on the top to get in the way of wherever you're going. And also they're a lot more quiet as well because of there's no mirror. So if I just do a sound test, it's a nice click rather than the slap of an SLR camera, which is another reason why street photographers absolutely love rangefinders compared to SLR cameras. Now, that being said, about more modern technology, is that this SLR specifically has auto exposure functions, while this has absolutely none of that. With the exception that the Canon 7 does have a light meter which displays the correct aperture that you should use. Because rangefinders are a lot older, it means that these light meters, typically on this camera specifically, tend to become a little bit foggy, which makes the light meter a bit inaccurate to how it would be in real life. This will never happen with my SLR. I think those are the main differences between how SLRs and rangefinders are cosmetically and how they work internally as well. So which one should you buy? If you're just getting into film photography for the first time, I would probably start looking at an SLR, as these are a lot more abundantly available compared to rangefinders, and they're usually a lot cheaper as well. They also, like I said, have a lot more newer technology inside, which makes it easier for photographers to properly expose for their film, frame up their shots correctly, and there are a lot less things to go wrong with an SLR as compared to a rangefinder. With an SLR, you're seeing right through the lens, so anything that's probably wrong through the viewfinder is probably wrong with the lens, while it's the other way around with a rangefinder, where you aren't seeing through the lens, and the way that rangefinders focus is they have a little lever in the inside the camera itself, which pushes back and forth the parallax image in the viewfinder, and that itself isn't lens dependent, that can be body dependent, so repairing is a lot harder on a rangefinder than it is on an SLR camera. That being said, you should probably get an SLR if you're only starting off in film photography just recently. However, rangefinders are also abundantly available as well, but rangefinders like this Canon 7 are a lot harder to come by. There are a lot more point and shoots that use the rangefinder technology. So yeah, I think that will wrap up the video for today. This is also my first ever YouTube video I've shot, so it would be great if you could leave a comment and a like and maybe subscribe as well. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.